Rainfall threat mounting for a developing system heading for China on tonight's Tropical Weather Bulletin. And now the latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical Weather Bulletin for June 10th. Well, apart from all the Eastern Pacific action, which is not really going to be going off the boil, apart from the two storms dying off, there could be two more filling its place next week. There's also that Western Pacific activity and a large storm which may be about to form over there in the South China Sea, heading for southern China over the next few days. That's the biggest concern right now around the world. In the Atlantic, Day 10 of hurricane season, and it's a pretty bare view of the basin, so that's good news. The Atlantic has no areas of interest to be monitoring in the next 7 days, which makes a change. In the Eastern Pacific, though, it really is getting on for a busy start. Whilst we don't think they're hurricanes any longer, or Barbara at least. Barbara was a hurricane earlier today and notched up the first one of the season. Cosme may be about to do it itself, though. They're both still very near hurricane strength, and two areas of interest behind that later on in the week that could develop. Western Pacific, very high chance for this area of interest now in the South China Sea, really taking shape. Models have closed in on it, and it certainly now pretty much looks like it's going to become a tropical cyclone. The question is, how strong? North Indian Ocean, pretty quiet here. Some thunderstorms though over the Bay of Bengal right now, but we're not looking at any realistic chances of a tropical cyclone in the next 7 days. And for what it's worth, we're still doing it at the minute, looking at the southern hemisphere, southwest Indian Ocean, just in case it catches us off guard, but it won't. Nothing going on here, just but quite a nice looking system off the coast of southern Africa there, moving out now over the Indian Ocean. Apart from that, a very quiet picture. And in the Australian region, it had been a very busy time for this region during the previous few months, but now it is looking pretty depleted, and very little activity now across the basin in terms of any weather, actually, not just tropical cyclone activity. Well, we're still checking in on Barbara because the other storm hasn't formed yet in the Western Pacific. Still 70-mile-per-hour winds according to our latest estimate, 988 millibars, 18.1 north, 107.9 degrees west. This storm should die off very quickly. Some models suggesting it won't even get past Socorro Island, which is only 326 kilometers away. 392 from Puerto Vallarta, 567 from Cabo San Lucas, 580 from Mazatlan, and 714 from La Paz. No warnings and no impacts expected. Even the rainfall factor has already passed by the coast now. So let's check in on satellite imagery with these storms then. So first of all, Barbara on GOES 18 rapid scan, visible here quite clearly. It looks much slower than the other satellite imagery that we show because all of these frames are condensed to a very short time period. 1 minute imagery, you can see it revolving there on that imagery. Well, Barbara's not looking quite as good this evening, definitely. The convection is much less. The structure underneath is probably still looking quite good. It's just hard to see underneath there. Cosme as well is in a similar situation in a way. We'll take a look at that in just a second. You did see it there though on the bottom left of the screen, but here's some more visible imagery over a wider time period for Barbara. Quite a small system now actually. Most of those clouds aren't reaching the coast of Mexico, even though the distance is relatively short. The southern side of it not looking quite so good on that imagery. Very little rotation on those mid to high level clouds. Only a little pool there of minus 70 degree cloud tops. So it really isn't that much of a photogenic storm. But here is Cosme, another high-end tropical storm, a small one, a concentrated wind field, no doubt. 70 mile per hour winds, 990 millibars, 15.1 north there. And you can see it's gradually moving towards the west-northwest as well. It was struggling yesterday underneath the influence of Barbara, which was causing significant wind shear, but it's looking a little bit better today in a way. More concentrated cloud tops towards the center, but again looking lopsided towards the western southwestern side there. massive dry slot by the looks of things. And this is Invest 92W, which is really shooting up tons of cloud tops, convection, thunderstorms all across the South China Sea. As to be said, 90% chance that we're giving this now. 30 mile per hour winds, 1000 millibars. It is heavily wind sheared. You can clearly see that on the eastern side. That big shelf appearance is the result of that. Otherwise, all the convective tops would be near the center. It is waning a little bit in those latest frames, but look at those actual numbers there, those yellows showing minus 80 degree cloud tops, which is very impressive. And this system looks to me as though it's going to become a tropical cyclone eventually. It's going to be very broad, already is at the minute, trying to get a circulation going from ASCAP passes earlier. I think it will manage it pretty soon, in the next 24 hours at least, and then it will start to slowly strengthen. Looking at the wide shots then off the US East Coast, there's more severe weather across the eastern United States today, with severe thunderstorm warnings all over the place right now. The Caribbean region looking interesting as well. A few thunderstorms all across the southwestern part of the Caribbean there, but nothing becoming an actual cyclone. Barbara and Cosme off towards the west there, and behind that you can see quite a few other little systems behind it, very poorly organized at the minute, but eventually something will come out of that. And 92W taking the stage here in the Western Pacific, which of course has had a lackluster start to the year, but it looks like that is about to change. Bay of Bengal, of course, hasn't had a named storm yet either. You can see some thunderstorms there off the coast of India, and some of them penetrating well inland actually, but nothing in terms of a cyclonic development. And looking at the southwest Indian Ocean, generally quiet, apart from quite a ferocious looking sting jet by the looks of things there off the coast of southern Africa, just into Mozambique there as well, South Africa, and another low pressure system there in the Tasman Sea off Australia that's just moved off the coast of New South Wales, and just the very southwesterly part of Western Australia getting the tail end of a system too. New Zealand getting buffeted right now with quite heavy cloud cover and some strong winds, no doubt, and heavy rainfall. Just one feature on the radar here, looking at some significant storms by the looks of things reaching western and southern Japan. Sea surface temperatures looking good across the Atlantic and only getting better. The loop current is the strongest point, getting up towards 30 degrees Celsius, and in the Caribbean Sea as well. And the Gulf Stream also looking good. Eastern Pacific, really warm temperatures the further east you go, but still drops off very quickly. That's why Barbara is really about to snuff it, because temperatures are right on the line now. So Barbara's going to weaken and wither away very quickly shortly. And in the Western Pacific, extremely warm temperatures in the South China Sea, full of energy, and also off the coast of the Philippines eastern side as well. Over 30 degrees Celsius over massive areas. And the Bay of Bengal, quite similar too, very warm waters there as well, up towards 32 degrees, and the Arabian Sea, also good at this point in time. And this is the departure from average, the oranges and the reds showing above average temperatures, the blues being colder than normal, and it's really going to be hamstringing the Eastern Pacific in terms of longer tracking storms, at least at the moment, because there's a massive cool pool there for anything that tries to get beyond Mexico. And the Atlantic looking quite good, above average overall, as you would expect, and the Western Pacific also generally pretty much fully good as well, for the storms of course. And oceanic heat content is very high there in the Philippine Sea, not quite as high in the South China Sea, but still plenty of energy for 92W to be feeding off, although it will get a little bit slower when it gets towards Hainan and towards the south coast of China, Hong Kong region. Eastern Pacific also showing a decent pool there. Western Caribbean is the hotspot for the Atlantic basin right now for oceanic heat content, pretty normal, but especially from Jamaica through to the Yucatan Peninsula, it is looking pretty good there with some high concentrations of energy. You get a small system in that area, it could really take off. So you can see the GFS there in the next 5 days for the Eastern Pacific, the diminishing remnants of Barbara, followed by Cosme very quickly behind it, and looking behind that as well over the rest of the Eastern Pacific. Could there be a sign of that next system? Well, interestingly, the GFS is not so confident anymore, but the other models, like the European model in particular, is calling for that next system and the one after that as well. Cosme and Barbara are pretty much finished, even though Cosme may not even have peaked yet, and then they disappear over those cold sea surface temperatures. Western Pacific, this is obviously the big one right now. The GFS is calling for, obviously still one of the most bullish models compared to the other ones right now, but all major models now calling for a significant storm, at least a moderate to high-end tropical storm with a pressure in the lower 990s. GFS calling for a 980 peak, I think it was, Category 1 Typhoon. That would be landfall squarely over Hainan and then stalling a little bit and then moving towards the northeast. And that would take it just to the northwest of the Hong Kong-Macau region, and then continuing northeastwards through inland China. But look at the rainfall sweeping through that whole region there, over Hainan Island in particular, the western side of the center of the storm, getting the highest amounts of rainfall at first, and then afterwards when it moves into mainland China, it will most likely be the eastern part. But look at some of the rainfall amounts we could receive, up towards 31 inches, which is nearly 800 millimeters of rainfall in Vietnam, possibly 250 millimeters. Taiwan, residual rainfall from that one possibly producing 300 millimeters, and the rest of China getting up and above 300 millimeters possibly as well. Longer range, day 5 to 10, that another Eastern Pacific storm there. So GFS is having that one eventually, just forming it maybe a little bit later than the European model and some of the other ones, Icon included as well. But GFS does form that system. That's the 50% one, eventually maybe becoming a hurricane. GFS has been calling for that for a while and getting close to the coast of Mexico. Does it quite get there? Not sure. And finally, what continues of that typhoon through China, continuing northeastwards, and its remnants looking like they're affecting Japan as a frontal system. So that storm is pretty much done, but that would be a somewhat impressive start to the Pacific typhoon season, but certainly not out of the realms of the ordinary. And if I stop tripping over words, we might be able to get through to the next part. You can scan the barcode and that will take you through to the Force 13 merch store, where you can take a look at all our items as well as our full season and individual storm animations on request. And of course you can find all of our outlets through our Linktree page. Take a look and you'll find all of our areas. And in the fantasy range, which is even further out and not really to be taken seriously, but we show them anyway, the Eastern Pacific system dying off as it approaches the Gulf of California, another victim to those cold sea surface temperatures in that region. And then the Atlantic, possibly two systems there, one briefly there in the Gulf of Mexico, you may have missed it, just about to make landfall in Mexico. There it is, right at the beginning there, landfall, possibly a brief spin-up tropical storm. And behind that then the other one that you probably did see much more of, forming in that real sweet spot I mentioned for oceanic heat content through the Yucatan, and then who knows where it goes next. That's a tropical storm there entering the Gulf from the northern tip of the Yucatan. Well, on this day, it was June 10th, 1989, when we did have quite a similar storm, actually, to what is being forecasted. Typhoon Dot, which was a high-end Category 2, did briefly peak as a Category 3 beforehand, but was making landfall on the southern tip of Hainan Island at this point as a 110-mile-per-hour storm, sweeping through, moving westwards mainly into the Gulf of Tonkin before continuing to weaken afterwards. We also had Tropical Depression 2A, which was about to become a tropical storm. It actually made landfall at this point and actually re-emerged afterwards and strengthened. So it's getting to be a rather busy tropics, and we are code yellow for it. In the Atlantic, the first name though is Andrea. In the Eastern Pacific, our next name is Delilah, and in the Central Pacific, it will be Iona. Coming up in the Western Pacific, of course, it will be Wu Tip. Maybe it isn't so far away. And in the North Indian Ocean, the next name is still Shakti at this point as well. 28 storms so far this year. It's been a bit of a slow period, our first hurricane equivalent storm for a couple of months actually. And in the Australian region, the next name is Fina, Southwest Indian Ocean, Lyra, and the South Pacific, the next name is Ermal. That's all for tonight's Tropical Weather Bulletin. We'll be back again tomorrow night.
Become an Ultimate Fan today.